Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo guys, my name is Agnes Diah Wiranti. I want to tell a story about a good man is hard to find. Okay, a good man is hard to find by Flanner O'Connor. Okay, characters. There is grandmother, the misfit, Bailey's wife, John Wesley, June Star, Red Sam Boots, Red Sam's wife, Bobby Lee. Okay, and then conflict. Person versus person, person versus self, person versus God, and person versus nature. Okay, and then setting. The story takes place on and around backcountry roads in the south. The family lives in Atlanta and is traveling through Georgia on their way to Florida. The family stopped at a place called the Tower for barbecue sandwich, owned by a man named Red Sammy and his wife. Okay, anthem. First, finding race. Second, prejudice. And the last, family. After that, plot summary. A grandmother is traveling with her family from Atlanta to Florida for a vacation. The grandmother, who would prefer to go to Tennessee, informs the family that a violent criminal known as the Misfit is lost in Florida. But they do not change their plans. The grandmother secretly brings her cat in the car. They stop for lunch at Red Sammy's famous barbecue, and the grandmother and Red Sammy commiserate that the world is changing and a good man is hard to find. After lunch, the family begins driving again, and the grandmother realizes they are near an old plantation she once visited. When sent to see it again, she tells the children that the house has a secret panel, and they clamor to go. Billy reluctantly agrees. As they drive down a rough dirt road, the grandmother suddenly realizes that the house she is remembering is in Tennessee, Georgia. Shocked and embarrassed by the realization, she suddenly kicks over her belongings, realizing the cat, which jumps onto Billy's head and causes an accident. A car slowly approaches them, and the misfit and two young men get out. The grandmother recognizes him and says so. The two young men take Billy and his son into the woods, and shots are heard. Then they take the mother, the doctor, and the baby into the woods. More shots are heard. Throughout, the grandmother pleads for her life, telling the misfit she knows he is a good man and entreating him to pray. He engages her in a discussion about goodness, Jesus, and crime and punishment. She touched his shoulder, saying, "Why, you are one of my babies, you are one of my own children." But the misfit recalls and shoots her. Okay, plot orientation. Start in the first of the story when they have a plan to go Florida, but grandmother prefers to go as Tennessee. And then easing action. When they start their trip by a car, grandmother wishes to visit a house that she knew growing up and talks the kids into wanting to go after stopping aside little barbecue joint. Car accident on the way. Three men towards the family. The grandmother then recognized one of them as the notorious murderer, the misfit. After that climax, the misfit and his crew examine the scene and analyze the car, while grandmother is pleading and throwing life advice at the misfit. The men execute and the family members, and eventually the grandmother last. Okay, following action. Men show no remorse in the murder, even likely laughing. And the last resolution, the misfit kills grandmother and says she would have been a good woman if it had been somebody there to shoot her every minute of her life. Okay, and the story, there is moral message. That first, everyone can be a good person, even he or she a worse one. And second, family is everything. The third, never stop giving advice to someone else. And the last, whatever your problem, never forget to pray. Okay, that is my video. Thanks for your attention and thanks for watching. Bye bye, see you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi